Hello, hello. Welcome back to Diary of a Psychic Medium with me, Amber Amrine. Today we have Danny and Sarah of Behold Retreats joining us to explore the transformative power of psychedelic medicines, the importance of integrity and safety in guiding experiences, and the evolving understanding of healing and consciousness. Here we go. This was one of the most fun I've had in conversations. They were so open to some really difficult questions I had, and it was such a fun journey with them. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Danny Yepez and Sarah Lynn Thomas lead Behold Retreats, a world-class platform guiding leaders, creators, and change-makers through transformational plant medicine journeys. Their work has attracted high-profile clients, including many NFL stars, has been featured in ESPN, the New York Times, and Condé Nast Traveler as one of the world's top luxury ayahuasca retreat providers. Together, Daniel and Sarah are on a mission to guide individuals through life-changing journeys, combining their strengths to offer deeply transformative experiences that connect mind, body, and spirit. Their partnership is rooted in a shared commitment to fostering human advancement and creating spaces for safe, legal, and profound personal growth. Here they are. Alrighty, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining. Let us begin with who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Danny. I'm my co-CEO for Behold Retreats, and we work in the psychedelic space. We work with entheogenic plant medicines. We do retreats currently in 3 different countries, in Portugal, Mexico, and Costa Rica.
My name is Sarah. I am the So happy co-CEO along with Danny, my partner here. We're happy to be on the show. Thank you for having us.
Of course. What brought you to this work? What brought you to each other? How did this all manifest?
So manifestation, that's a beautiful word for sure. So I've been in this space for probably around 16 years already. And entheogens came into my life for me as I discovered depression for the first time in my life. I was in a 20-year marriage that from separation and divorce, I discovered that depression, and which I had never felt before. I had no empathy for people with depression. I always thought it was just a click in the head and not really something, until it came knocking on my door and realized what that really felt like. And I was fortunate enough to have a friend who was on the plant medicine path already. And he said, Danny, look, you're a hard-headed kind of guy. You're going to need 2 nights of this thing called ayahuasca. I'm like, what? I was curious all about it. But I trusted, and I in an open mind, stepped into it 16 years ago. So it was a path that led me into an incredible awakening of sorts, a major transformation in my own personal life. It's a rediscovery, a new beginning of myself, and the opportunity to be a new version of myself. So that's kind of what brought me into the curiosity that only sparked more interest and took me into a path of what I would say a 10-year sabbatical, where I was just dedicated into the research and the knowledge and understanding of all the different entheogen and plant medicines out there. And ultimately found ourselves working in the psychedelic space. And Sarah joined me at that time. And of course, we've been at it all along.
Yeah. I like when Danny says 16 years, I get to follow up that I have been doing this for 30 years. I have been experimenting for 30 years with psychedelics. I started at a young age. I'm very grateful that I started at a young age, and it was really out of curiosity. I heard this beautiful thing that you could eat that would make the world look like a rainbow. And I thought, that sounds amazing. I would love to try that. And then from that age up until now, I would experience like on and off a few years in a row where I would have a practice once a quarter with mushrooms, for example. And then probably about 14 years ago was the first time that I experienced ayahuasca. The first time I heard the word, I don't know why, it just resonated with me. I didn't know what it was, but when I traveled for 2 years in a row, and when I went to Peru, I remember hearing that I can find this thing called ayahuasca in Peru. And so I started looking for it. And it wasn't until 8 years ago that this became my path and my purpose. And to work with other people to bring them, if they're called to this medicine, to bring them in a space in which they're comfortable to do it. And then I think your third question was, how did we meet? You used the word manifestation. And so I won't tell the whole story, but I will say that I manifested this relationship in 2 hours. I was walking down the street thinking about what I was doing in Costa Rica, and then I told the universe what I wanted. And 2 hours later, I met Danny, and that was
Oh, wow.
about 8.5 years ago. Very quick manifestation. And I will say some of my manifestations I get, and then I look at how I got them, and I go, oh, I don't know if I would have, I would have wanted it exactly like that. Danny was one where it was exactly right, exactly perfect fit. And it just happens to be that our interest, his interest for healing, and then mine for curiosity, came in to work together for healing and expansion. And within a year, I had my first very powerful healing experience within psychedelics. And then now just to have the honor and the privilege to do that for a living for other people, to walk them through very powerful ceremonies and really get to see people from the first day to 7 days later, the change that they've been able to make in real time is just really been rewarding and a humbling
Yeah.
path.
In my case as well, I came from a place where I was anti-drugs, anti-pills, anti-anything that had codependency in it. So went to military school when I was a kid. So I was a very square formation kind of mindset.
Sure.
And so this was really very eye-opening, to say the least. I'm a skeptical kind of human, so it was hard for me to believe or take anyone's word for it. So I dove really in, and here we are in the years that we've been working at this for quite some time.
Because this is naturally a transformational space, what does partnership look like when you both are constantly transforming? I guess, how do you find that balance?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I would say a lot of communication and openly, even though I manifested Danny, if I can put it that way, very quickly. It took us a year to learn how to communicate with each other. We of course got nuggets along the path, but there are certain ways in which we would have to express, I need to talk to you. I would like to. I've even learned to say things like, a lower version of me needs to talk to you. Do you have the space for that? And so he knows that, like, I'm struggling, and can you be there for me right now? And we learned the check-ins, and not wait to have check-ins until we're challenged, but have them all the time so that they can be fun sometimes.
Yeah, the growth is beautiful. I mean, the transformation is ongoing. And I think for us, being in this space and also witnessing other people transform is a lesson for us, and quite rewarding at the same time to be able to witness the transformation from others. And we get to learn from that space as well. So it's an ongoing and continuous level of work, self-recognizing, self-actualizing. Those are areas that are important, and we get to witness one another. We get to share one another. We don't often have couples come into our retreats. We sometimes do and sometimes don't, and it's beautiful us as a couple to be able to host other ones as well. So it's a beautiful process.
I love that.
I was going to add, we just ended a retreat where this is common and very frequent, where someone will come to retreat and their partner will have a fear that they will come home and have transformed and no longer want to be in that relationship. And it's quite the opposite. They have had a reflection of themselves, a reflection of how they show up in a relationship, how they communicate, and they're excited to go back home and be kinder, more loving, more less judgmental, more sweet. And so it's that's also very romantic. We know that we're sending people back home to be better partners and better parents and better kids and all of the things. When I say kids, I mean adult kids.
I didn't even think about that.
However they show up for the people in their lives, they are probably showing up in a better way.
I love that. I mean, there's so much unknown still about this, or so much that people don't understand. There's still a bit of taboo, and
Yeah.
people are scared of what they don't understand. So I feel like their fears are understandable, but it's so beautiful seeing how much this work really stabilizes things rather than causes chaos, right? It like brings all the puzzle pieces together instead of breaking them all apart.
Yeah, I'm sure you experience that with what you're doing as well as more people are getting more information. And so I do feel judgment is decreasing and interest is increasing. And whenever somebody is going back into spaces, whether that's work or in their personal life, where maybe they're around conservative people, we guide them towards the end of retreat about integration and how to communicate or how not to communicate, which could be if you just go home, people will see. And some people that may around the water cooler have teased you if they knew what you were doing might come to your office and say, hey, what did you do? I can see something is different and I would like to make a change as well. And so I love that people are hearing more about these what would have been called woo-woo before, or what witches would have been burned at the stake 100 years ago. Now people are saying there's incredible people out there that are connected in a way in which I also want to be connected. Let's go meet those people.
Absolutely. What responsibility would you say comes with guiding someone through an experience where their sense of reality can dissolve? So what does safety look like outside of like physical safety?
Yeah, I love this question because the first thing that we work on, of course, is somebody's physical safety. And some people will resonate with then their emotional safety, their mental safety. And then we're doing work that's Southern medicine. And so if you have like a Western concepts, you're used to Western medicine. Eastern medicine is holistic, and Southern medicine touches on spirit. And some people that don't resonate with that, I at least say, go back to your spirit, that we are taking care of like the Sarah that came into this world and will leave this world. But um, it wouldn't be fair not to talk about the spiritual aspect of ayahuasca and to take care of that. And so that means a couple things. All of the people that we work with are walking this path and in integrity. And so one of my jobs, I'm not on the medicine team. We have a care team during the day that is there to make sure that everyone's nervous system is regulated, that they feel confident, that they have been prepared, that they're processing, that they're integrating. And then we have a medicine team. One of my roles for the medicine team is to make sure that they are showing up in their highest vibration. They're also human, but they need to rest. They need to have nourishment, and they also need to do their practice to make sure that when they go to ceremony, they are focused to be a full service to the people that are there, and that they don't come in with any other agenda, with anything but to be in integrity and serve for the people that are there. And you may want to elaborate.
No, the responsibility is great, right? It's a huge responsibility to undertake the task, especially the task of earning trust. And I think that's probably the key element. And for people to come in and step into our doors is really find that surrendered state requires full trust, and that's we work really hard to provide that level of care, of level of trust, not only within our teams, but in what we do and how we do it, in the space that we create, the container that we safeguard, and ultimately uh, our safeguard is really strong in the sense that not everyone gets invited to come to our retreats just because we're wanting everyone's readiness to be there, and we want the integrity of the container for the rest of the guests to also be there. So there's many factors that play along when deciding who to come and who are we accepting and who's coming into our retreats.
I'll add also just a bit, our ayahuasca retreat itself is called The Guide Inside. While in our life, of course, a helping hand is always useful, we are always pointing people back to themselves. And if there is a group or organization or human that isn't bringing you back to yourself or your community and saying, you need me to expand, you need me to heal, I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I'm saying that's a flag to look at, ask questions, because I really think we do have all of the answers ourselves. Sometimes we just need that tool, that method, that experience, that ceremony. So I think that's also how we make sure that we're focused in that way. Bring them back to
Absolutely.
themselves.
Yeah, this is such this is such interesting work because people are very vulnerable, and there's a fine line between guidance and influence, you know? And I feel like so frequently, because there is still not fully, that sentence didn't make sense. Whatever I was about to say would not have made sense. Let me start over. Because because there's still a lot of taboo around this stuff. People don't fully understand it. So they go in trusting, and then people screw them over, or people bring them back to themselves, as you're saying. I guess, how do you find the line between that guidance and influence? It's a weird question. I suppose what I'm curious about, because it is a business, so naturally you do need to make money in order to sustain being able to help more people. How do you find the line between keeping the business aligned?
Yeah.
It's such a tough word, business, and introducing that language. I've always been fighting for that for quite some time. People that come to our retreats, we work with two verticals, healing and expansion. So some people come in looking for expansion and they end up getting healing, and vice versa. And for us, healing happens once. Once you achieve healing, healing is done. You're complete. There's no need to come back. Our retreats are designed to educate, to empower, to allow people to take on back control of their lives, their world, their bodies, their minds, and their spirit. And ultimately, our role is to guide them into that deeper and greater understanding for themselves. We also safeguard the aspects of putting rules within our retreat of where once people leave, there's no major decisions that should be taken for 30 days, that there's nothing else that is being influenced, because there lies, again, the responsibility, right? People are open, and it's really, it's where the care really needs to take place the most. And that for us is something that we safeguard really, and we hold that really close to our hearts. So it's the aspect of finding that balance of knowing that what you're doing. Now, fortunately, the need is greater than the availability out there. So there's enormous amount of people that's out there in that need. And so for us, we're here to be of service in any way, and allow for people to continue to come for the need that's there.
I'll add a bit here. I know you don't like the word business. I'll use the organization.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes Danny will lean on me in that area. I'm going to say something. I'm going to remind you of something. A long, long time ago, when we started this, I would do the financial piece, and I would come to Danny and I would say, would you like to know how we did? And he would say no. He's like, this comes from my heart. And if I know how we do, like financially, he may revert to who he was 10 years ago during that same period of going through the depression. And he said he's made all these changes in his life. So he said, if we did well, wonderful, and we can invest in the next one. If we didn't do well, let me know. I can help, like with negotiating prices or something like this. And so one, I think having balances between the areas of your work, then you can show up in the way that you're supposed to show up. And then also organizationally, not within our business, within our organization, we have a really important role. It's called our guardian. It's the first person that anybody ever speaks with. And he is the person that will guide somebody to their full yes or their full no, or they're not now, not ready. So for example, like if they needed to come off of medications, or if they needed to take steps or get coaching before coming on retreat. But there is no sales process. It's you need to be called, and then are you healthy? He has these steps to it. If you ever are looking for ayahuasca, well, of course, I hope you look us up, but no matter where you go, if the conversation sounds like, yeah, just come on down and we'll see how it goes, it's they're not looking at the safety that should be in place from the beginning. If it doesn't feel like getting into something, then it might not be the full steps of taking care of your health and your well-being. And we have lovely friends in all aspects, and it is tough when you need to fill a retreat. Does your integrity stay the same? And so that's why it is nice for people that can have a sustainability in all the ways, including financial, so that they never feel like they have to make a decision based on numbers.
I love that. Yeah. So important. I feel like especially as this space is becoming more commercialized,
Yeah.
there's a lot of bad hats in this intuitive spiritual space, healing space. And I feel like finding ways, it's almost like this is a new thing that's being introduced in the world, right? The way that this is being presented is not something that's necessarily been around ever before. So it requires new ways of building businesses or organizations and approaching them. It just requires new tools. And I resonate with that a lot. My partner also, he is very like strategic, organized, very smart, very in the head. And I just need to be like floating around. Like, I don't know what's going on. I just need to like do my magic, So I definitely need another body to be doing all of that like logistic work. So that's great. I also want to touch upon healing as an identity. I feel like in this space, people get very addicted to healing, where they feel like it's constant. There's never an end. They're just like stuck in this, like jumping from this thing to this thing to this thing because they just want to heal. But there's no movement happening. There's no integration because you're not moving forward and integrating,
Yeah. I mean, you heard Danny say a very strong statement, and some people may, the strong statement being, once you're healed, you're healed. Things will come up. Life is painful. If we have the tools to process them, then life doesn't have to be suffering. But something else will come up, and then we might need to go through another process of healing. But so while I may have used softer language, I understand what Danny means, is that you don't have to keep doing this over and over and over. Sometimes I'll work on something and I'll think I've let it go and it'll come back up. I'm like, didn't we do this? Okay, how do I make sure I turn that page? And you're right. It's I don't want to poorly quote people, but I also don't want this to sound like it came from me. But there's a lot of expressions out there that say, if you look for something in the world, you will find it. If you look for pain within yourself, you're going to find it. If you will look for something wrong, you are going to find it. But if you look for connection, acceptance, you will find it. And so I even have teased a couple of my friends that are on these healing paths, that it's a lifelong path to them. And I say, why don't you take the month off? Why don't you take 1 month off and just have fun? And then at the end, they're like, that was the best month of my life. I was like, why don't you do one more? Why don't you do one more? And I know deeply that shadow work is very important. I know the importance of shadow work. And I also love the counter to it with light work. And so instead of looking for a characteristic within myself that I don't like, because I'll find it and then work on how to make it, how to reduce that characteristic. Instead, what trait or virtue do I want to have? And then I'll start looking for that one. And so, and within looking for the light, darkness may come up. So in looking for inspiration, I might find twinges of jealousy and go, okay, I'm having this emotion, jealousy. What is that? Oh, that's I'm going to transmute that into inspiration. But now my mindset is on light. It's not on, okay, what's wrong with me? Jealousy. And so I do think we can shift some of the ways in which we do our work to have a more positive mindset. I'm going to tell an embarrassing story. Before I came to Costa Rica, I was raised in a very Western family, science. And the first time I met somebody that said I'm a healer, I was just fascinated. I go, what do you heal? Tell me about it. And I also recognize that healing starts with kindness. Spirituality starts with kindness, I guess. And so I learned a bit in that direction. But as they were telling me what they did, I go, oh, okay, great. And then what? Because unlike Danny, who came in for direction, I came in for like curiosity and expansion and all of the things. And they go, okay, and then what? And they go, and then you heal your ancestors. I was like, then what? And then you heal your karmic line. Or when do we go to the future? I'm like, when are we growing? And at the time, I even thought they were making this up to make money. And now I know that there are these methods and practices that we do need to heal family lineages. I'm only sharing this embarrassing story to express that I do believe in what Danny is saying, that we can let go. We don't have to identify with a trauma, that we can rewrite our story, rewrite our lives, and become who we want
Yeah.
to become.
Also to go about the aspect of people that return and come back. Although all the tools that are there and that we provide and what the medicine provides as well, and if you came from toxicity and came into find that healing within yourself, only to have the awareness of now knowing what you have to do, but you return back to toxicity, then the odds of you having to return are going to be great, right? Because you fell right back where you were. Now, where we love and enjoy people coming back is when they're coming back for expansion, because that's where it gets interesting. That's where it gets fun. That's where it gets infinite, where expansion can be many worlds, many dimensions, many universes. So it's an exciting part of this work as well.
Yeah. And the difference between that, you mentioned the word, is integration. That we integrate these things into our life, and that's the key, the most important part.
My approach to healing in general is more focused on identity, which it sounds sort of like another way to say what you're saying as well. But I guess just to digest everything in a different way, I feel like when we gain any type of little revelation, whether small or big, the way that we understand the world changes. And we can't necessarily unlearn that truth, which kind of goes to this fact of like, as you heal and bring new parts of yourself back, you are just innately a different person, whether in small ways or big ways. And new wounding may come up, and that's fine. But you're a different person, so you handle it a little bit differently,
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say people are most afraid to discover about themselves going into these experiences?
So I haven't found yet too frequently that people are afraid of discovering about themselves more than afraid of reliving something that they're afraid to relive. And I guess this could be along the same lines. I first heard the question is like a trait about themselves or way they show up in the world. I guess also some people are afraid that they will discover something that their conscious may have forgotten.
Yeah, relive.
Yeah. And so they're afraid they're going to find out that they were hurt when they were a child. And so we work with that specifically. We work with and inform on the ways in which ayahuasca works, where many times we don't know exactly what the healing is taking place, and we just feel better. And ways in which we showed up in life, we're not showing up anymore. So we have an awareness without having to relive an experience. We're human, and our consciousness wants to know exactly what things are. And if we don't know at the time, we think it may not have worked. And so that one takes longer. But there's a beauty in it. I've had multiple types of experiences where I knew exactly what I was working on in a ceremony. And it's challenging, and I move through it. And also ayahuasca, it opens our heart. And so it's challenging, but you're also held, right? And then there's the experience where we do relive it. There are humans that have forgotten something. It was for their protection. And then that does come up. And now they have the tools and perspectives and understandings of pain and being hurt and people hurting people. And so it also isn't just like, here's this fact or here's this data. It also comes with perspective and heart and forgiveness and a lot of tools and a loving group of human beings to really hold that. So I would say that's the biggest fear that comes up is.
Yeah. The beautiful part of it is people get to witness or relive sometimes these past experiences or traumas that they've had in their lives, but as an observer now. And this is maybe the best aspect of it, because as an observer, you're able then to really look into it without the attachments or the emotional attachments that come with that. So that really is a very therapeutic aspect to it that brings a lot of value to people that come.
Yeah. And then they learn patterns that were created to go, oh, this makes sense. Why? X, Y, Z. And so then the shifts in their lives just start clicking.
I, as a child, went through sexual abuse. So I have self-induced amnesia as part of my PTSD. And when I was I very seriously started to tackle the healing when I was about 16. Like 16 to 18 was when I was really focusing on it. And I was terrified of remembering. And I started to realize that, sure, some things become more clear, but other things don't, and they don't need to be, because the healing is not about the details. The healing is more about me coming into my power, affirming that now, finding ways to move through that now, strengthening myself now. It's about now and the aspects of being that I'm calling back in, instead of creating this simulation where I have to just like go through the whole thing again. It's not necessary.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really about the patterns and even miswiring. We've had such a honor, a humbleness to work with people that maybe had some disconnect between that childhood event and love, or even orgasm, or in shame and things like this, and in real time be able to see those connections disconnect, and then love coming in as opposed to shame and things like this. And so it's really incredible work, and thank you for the work that you do for yourself. And when we work on ourselves, you're helping other people, and so thank you. And thank you for sharing, because that's also really the world needs that. And
there's also the cause and effect that happens when these traumas or experiences are lived. And one of the beautiful things about these entheogenic plant medicines, for instance, is they give you the ability to then rewire how you're going to look at that, how you're going to address that. And it's in that rewiring that the healing comes in, that the change comes in, that the new you, the new version of you, you're no longer attached to that version of who you thought you were because of that. So it's beautiful to see that in real time for us.
Absolutely. I've really only dabbled with mushrooms. I feel like, honestly, I'm like always flying around. when I have taken mushrooms, I'm like, this is honestly not too far off from how I feel on a daily basis.
I love that.
But I work very closely with the fairy realm, and I feel like in taking mushrooms, it just made me feel so much closer to them. And one thing that I've always appreciated about the fairy realm is they've taught me to make something fun out of the sticky stuff. If I feel insecure about something, great, let's just wear it louder. And I think that kind of goes back into what we were talking about earlier with shadow work, and instead of focusing on the negative or what you don't like, but focusing on the positive. And I feel like one powerful thing that I've learned through the fairies and even through mushrooms is finding the value even in the sticky stuff. It's there for a reason. There's a lesson within it. Like there's magic still there, even if we don't like it in a certain way, It's like with food. Maybe you don't like it cooked this way, so let's cook it that way and then see how we can work with it.
Yeah, for sure. I love the psilocybins and the retreats we work on. Psilocybin are just magical, to say the least, because they allow for that childlike state to come back, for that deep inner laughter that you've yearned for all your life, enough that your guts are just sore, and so we really love the beauty of and the power that psilocybin does. We, in our ceremonies, we do three of them, which 3 ceremonies which are all different in their own styles, so we can really work on the different facets of the medicine itself and how you can work with them along the way. So it's we call it the bliss within that particular retreat, and it's finding that bliss within all of us that makes the difference.
Yeah. Danny always talks about awareness, and that's one of my personal practices, being aware of myself, my thoughts, who I am, who I want to be. And when I'm in it and not aware of myself, I'm in it. The emotions I am feeling them, I'm moving them, I'm probably sharing them with him. And when I'm aware, I will see myself have those emotions. And then, like you said, they're almost humorous, some of them. For example, if I'm angry, I'm thinking, Sarah, you're angry at somebody who you're angry at somebody who is always mean, and they're being mean. And then I realize, oh, that's me. They're not making me angry. I am letting them make me angry. And then I can take my power back. And then I kind of
Mhm.
laugh at myself. I'm like, what a silly thing to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Life works so much easier, I feel, when I mean, it's easier said than done, but when you're able to laugh at things and just move things very simply and not take things so seriously, it's the hardest lesson, and I feel like to integrate, but it is such a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like that it's being popularized to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
That was misunderstood. And I think we are recognizing that that is a superpower and a key to not having depression. Quit
Hmm.
wearing masks,
Yeah. I
be
love
yourself, be silly, be,
Yeah, it's fascinating to see the amount of men showing up as well
yeah.
for this. Like, we're excited to see more and more men from all different walks of life, and just stepping into that and being open and vulnerable, which is beautiful to see. And we're hosting this year our first men's retreat, so it's beautiful to kind of help in that level of work, just for the boys, for the guys, to come in and step into that openness of vulnerability. And wow, what a way to shift the world when we can, like, have these men transform and step into their beautiful powers in a different way. So
Hold each other.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Absolutely. What is the creation process in terms of designing the retreats or the ceremonies?
Yeah. So I am very proud to say that in our ayahuasca retreat, we made a design of what we would have wanted ceremony wise, as far as like two ceremonies and then a break and then one ceremony, and how the structure of it. And we have kept that for 8 years. And then it's really what tools do we need to share? What facilitators can work best with different groups of people. So as Danny mentioned, a men's retreat is coming. We actually have a women's retreat going on right now.
Yeah.
And so we're bringing in, we've brought in like three powerful, wise women that are there. And so letting your team bring out their best and say, I think what these people would benefit. And so a lot of that happens pre-retreat, and then it happens in real time, recognizing what people need and recognizing like what they need to
Yeah,
move through.
at the start of this, we were I was specifically working with just transformational leaders from around the world, primarily men, alpha humans that have experienced everything in life, nothing shook them anymore. And so the design that I was working with at the time, it was a very strong, very intense 4 day, deep in the jungle, barefoot, fasting, just really tough, but it was that toughness that got people out of their comfort zone. It was like shaking a rug and seeing the dust come off of everyone, and really just getting people in that uncomfortable aspect, which opened up the vulnerability among themselves. And then, but we learned from that particular design that not everyone was going to be able to sign up to something like that. And I think for us, it came into how can we shift that into making something that was more accessible for everyone and anyone, right? And of course, we flipped it, and I like to say that we created a design that it's we invite people to come into this cloud, that even if you roll off and you fall into another cloud, because we just cradle you through this process and handhold you through this whole entire setting that allows you for really to come in. And that's really what's made the difference, to allow people from all different walks to kind of say, you know what, this is the right space for me. This is really the right container and design that makes me feel comfortable and at ease. I don't have to go in the middle of the boonies and jungles and have hardship and things like that, but really just step into the work in that way.
And I will add that like there's beauty and power in the jungle. And we also know experientially, the first time I did ayahuasca, I was in the jungle in the middle of nowhere, and I had to be considerate of my personal safety. You had asked questions at the beginning of this call about there's some people out there that don't have your best interest. And if you're taking a very powerful medicine, if you aren't in full trust, you can't dive deep, right? And so we designed our Behold retreats so that we have very powerful traditional ceremonies. And outside of that ceremony space, we make sure that people are very comfortable. And so after ceremony, instead of going to your tent and worrying about animals or things like that, you go into your room and you have a hot shower and you have AC and you can start regulating your nervous system. And the next day you can meet with who you need to meet with, or have alone time, or take a walk in nature, or get a massage, or do these things. So it's taking people in a space in which they can physically feel comfortable and then emotionally and mentally feel comfortable so that they can surrender to do deep work and be held in that way. And so that's specifically how we design is that method.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Mm.
Leaning into, I'm curious with the like alpha type, because there's a lot of power, I guess, in those types of people, and I'm curious if you have noticed a change in how they relate to power in general.
Yeah, I think that the shift can go from power over people to power for people. And so that's the shift that I see happen, is that instead of trying to accumulate power and control in their life and in situations, they it is a powerful experience. Everybody will feel their inner power, and it's a power for people. How can I start showing up in a way in which I can better my life and then the people around me? And so that's the power shift that I see, is power for people.
Yeah, I think we get to see people waking up into the aspect of being of service and how they can be more of service. And I think that's beautiful. I think many people are out there seeking purpose in their life, and it's really quite simple. It's just how to be of service is the purpose, nothing else to it. Yeah.
I think about the ripple effect a lot, and we get excited when certain types of industry, for lack of a better word that I can't come up with, certain occupation comes in. And so we've had politicians come and we get so excited. We think, what if every politician came into ayahuasca? And we had one that was ready to go back and change the world. And we had one that wanted to quit. And we're like, no, you're supposed to come back and keep working within politics. Insane. Like, we love it when we've had doctors and we've had university professors, and we've had people in pharmaceutical industry. We've had preachers. And so it's been really wonderful to see different people come and the changes that they can go impact the world in really strong places.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like there's a misconception a lot of times that once you've, I don't know, healed, awakened, whatever word you want to use, that you have to completely disconnect from dense places. But it is those dense places that now require your light so that the light can continue shining, you know? And yeah, I feel like having a connection to the why makes all the difference. You have so much more compassion. You can be more present. You are more willing to share your light instead of, you know, guarding it off and all of the things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What would you say you had to unlearn, or I guess allow to die in your own selves in order to step into this work?
Despite my interest in these beautiful, beautiful experiences from a young age, I still, based on programming that was very useful, and it was actually programming that came from the heart of my parents. My dad had 4 daughters, and so he taught all of us to be very independent and make sure that you always have your own money so that you're never with somebody for money. And so my dad had a doctor, an attorney. I went into finance and a logistic manager. So none of us followed a path of creativity. And well, you can be creative in those fields, so I don't mean to say that, but perhaps got off of our dharma to follow being independent, which I'm very grateful that I got that program. It served me well. I went into finance, which maybe wasn't my calling, but I'm happy I did. And that also built up a shell. I was also around a lot of alpha and ego people. And so I also became alpha and an ego person. And so as I started coming into this medicine and working in service, I also cared how I looked. I wanted to sit up for 6 hours straight, and I thought I was a warrior because I could. I would go outside to purge. I would cry, but I still cared that I looked strong. And so that was something that I had to shift, to say, like, it is okay to be seen. It is okay to be vulnerable. And I discovered I can be vulnerable and strong, that is something that is a part of me, but I can also be soft. I can also take care of myself. I can also rest when I need to rest instead of always showing up like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
For me, I think it's been unlearning has been the greatest thing that
you've unlearned everything.
yeah, and it's one of the things that from my own personal experience is the biggest thing or challenge that we look in our retreats is to help people through that unlearning process, because there's so much programming that comes in. So the older you are, the more decades of programming, of course, and the more that you have to unlearn. And to step into this work, I think, requires an open mind, and a mind that allows you to rethink everything again, to look at it in different perspective. I know for me, the old version of myself has died in its most part. I am not the same human being that I was before I entered into the plant medicine space, for instance. So it is quite transformational. It is quite eye-opening, and allows for alignment to take place within oneself. And I think one can to carry traits sometimes that can resurface from you, but it's having the three things that I always share what ayahuasca brings, which is awareness, 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 and then from there you tweak and tweak and tweak and keep working in life, because we're all humans at the end of the day. But as long as you're doing that self work, and you're doing and looking to self-actualize and become the highest version of yourself, then that's really what's really important than being self-critical at times. So I think that is the old version of me that I got to see go.
One aspect of there's different plant medicines and or fungi medicines or animal medicines. Like we work with bufo. Ayahuasca is a plant medicine. Psilocybin, I guess, is a fungi medicine, but we kind of all call everything plant medicine. And even non-natural, so if people sometimes work with MDMA or LSD, one thing that I do love that each have in common, because they have different aspects, different characteristics, different spirits, but all of them get people to start asking questions. Go, why is that like that? Why am I like that? And I think there also can be a layer of beauty that we don't have to question everything as a skeptic or negative, but we could just say, ask the questions. Does that make sense to me anymore? No, I'm gonna shift. I think Danny's recent one was science. He's like, who are backing some of these? Who are backing some of these studies? Ask more questions.
Through the years, I had to slowly let go of, religion, politics, and all of them. And like Sarah says, science was my last one and hard one to let go, because I was so science driven. And in a way, I still am, but ultimately, I'm more eye-opened on things nowadays than in the past.
Yeah, the damn propaganda. It's everywhere. It's horrible. Yeah, I feel like the one beautiful thing, I guess, about the design of how we operate is because old remnants of who we are sometimes do peek in. I feel like a lot of times that's what allows us to remain connected to the people that still need help or healing. Like if you are disconnected from your difficulty to an extreme degree, it's hard to have empathy for someone in the thick of it, because it's just like, oh, get over it. We're fine. Everything's great. Woo, butterflies, rainbows, but when you have those parts of you, not in control of you, but just there, and you provide space for them to be, I feel like it helps people feel that safety and security. They feel understood. It brings us back to a human being,
Yeah. And
well,
energy to take action for others.
Yeah.
That's a good way of observing that. And the key, of course, is like anything else. You'll walk through the path and you fall in the hole, and you'll fall once, and then you walk through the path and you can fall maybe twice. But the idea is that at some point you're going to start to see the hole, observe it, and walk around it, and then eventually avoid the hole entirely. So That's the essence of this work.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you take us through the different types of medicines and what they're best used for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think each of these plant medicines or entheogens are their own teacher. They're all very unique in their way. I mean, for us, the work that we do, and when we bring people to educate and empower, is to only share with them that this, at least for me, it's a shortcut. These are cheats. These are just a little fast track to know what it feels like to be at an altered state of consciousness and in a rapid way. And from that feeling, then the real work begins with the practice that you then take. And that practice can be meditation, it could be fasting, it could be all sorts of different modalities that allow you to achieve a dimethyltryptamine, for instance, without the need or use of substance. So all of them have their own uniqueness. So for instance, iboga, which is a very strong one right now, and one gaining a lot of popularity through ibogaine, is a very strong one, and we particularly don't work with that one because it requires medical supervision. But it is a very powerful, probably one of the strongest entheogens right now on the planet. It's a root bark of the iboga plant, and of course that has a particular need for someone, and the work that they can receive through that plant medicine, because they're all plant teachers. So we work with the bufo of the toad, of the bufo alfarius toad, but we also work with yopo, which is also a 5-MeO DMT compound that is a snuff rather than a inhalation of smoking the bufo alfarius. And rather than a 15-minute experience on the bufo, with yopo, you're experiencing that peak experience for several hours. So it's a very strong entheogen. And we don't work with yopo with newcomers or someone that's new in the space. But every one of them has their way of teaching the individuals. And we like to say we like to orientate and guide people based on where they're at in life, and which one they should start with at least.
Which is your favorite right now?
Ayahuasca is my favorite to bring people through. I have so much like trust in the medicine. I trust the process. Even after the first ceremony is a challenging one, because people will come back, have gone through something that they've never experienced before. And even from the first day to the end, I always have complete faith and trust. And I just know that this process will be strong, will be valid, will be real. My own personal practices with psilocybin is my favorite for myself, but for others, for the majority of people. So if somebody were coming, we would look at, is ayahuasca the best fit, bufo, psilocybin, and most people with where they are today, most people will be directed to ayahuasca, or we'll talk about them and they'll know that they're called to ayahuasca, for example.
Yeah, and I think therapeutically speaking, I think ayahuasca is probably one of my preferred one, in the sense that it allows you to go deep in that process and work through the aspects. For some humans that maybe, I don't know, they might be incredulous to all of this and don't have the time for dietas, and well, I'm not even sure if I believe in this whole thing and woo woo and blah, then sometimes that bufo experience is the way to go, because it's just going to just crack you open in a quick moment, and you're going to come back realizing that there's something huge and greater out there than what we are witnessing in this realm, for instance. So that really begins for most people the journey of their own curiosity and the deeper understanding of knowing that there is something far greater than what we are aware of.
Do you feel that that's ultimately what people are seeking when they seek out this work? Just a sense of there being more?
So I think for the people that come for on the expansion side, absolutely. I would say more than half, a lot more than half, are coming for healing. They're coming for something in their life that they feel is blocked, or they know they're blocked, or they know they're not showing up in a way in which they could. They know they're not living their fullest, most vibrant self. That is very true on the side of expansion. There's what else is there? Well, they're ready for secrets of the universe. They're ready to like look infinity outwards and infinity inwards.
Yeah. But we've also received people in academia that are, that have been lecturing, let's say, in consciousness, and they want to go from the theory into more of the practice, and how would it feel to be in an altered state of consciousness. So the expansion. So it all depends on what people are signing up for, and of course, like I said, expansion is probably my favorite, because there's so many worlds to traverse and so many realms to continue to explore, that it's just infinite in all its ways.
Yeah. How do you view the purpose of the human experience? Why are we here?
So mine
Hold
is
on.
sounds
We need to start a whole new podcast on that question alone. Wow.
To me, like mine is super simple, and it's to love, to be loving, to know in my heart that that is what I'm made out of, and to love others, to be loving, to be loved, to be loved. To me, it's love. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I mean,
He's like, eh.
it's we are taught so much things that aren't necessarily true, and even our whole education system is outdated and obsolete. It doesn't even make sense sometimes that we're still prescribing the same information. But the aspect of what's taken place, and in today's world, where things are just the layers of the onions are starting to peel away, and people are starting to see through this thing, and realizing, I think there's something far greater here than what meets the eye, what is really going on. And we start to peel back the layers of earth of our history, and realize that there's been some information that hasn't been
That
shared
they've been
correctly.
bamboozled.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's coming back to realizing that, we are fallen into this illusion that has been sold to us and shared to us, and we've been indoctrinated to believe what we think we believe. So these plant teachers, which is an inheritance from our ancestors, they're here for a reason and for a purpose, have shown us the way, are teaching us the way. There's a renaissance in the psychedelic space today. It's because I believe Mother Earth is crying out to their children to awaken, to come back to connection, to come back to source, to come back to God. And I think that's what's really important here. And
To come back to love.
love, which is all of it.
What I want to hear your answers.
Yes,
What did you?
I'm ready for this one.
You surprised us.
Yeah.
Call us back in an hour. We're gonna think about it.
I would say, I feel like our greatest purpose here is to essentially be as disconnected from ourselves as possible and figure out the path back. I guess,
like a quest.
yeah, it's sort of
what you mean.
like, it's interesting because I think the way that society is designed is sort of like, we don't know ourselves when we're young, and then we like learn about ourselves, but we're not learning about ourselves. We're becoming more disconnected from ourselves. We know ourselves most of all when we're young. And I feel like this phase of humanity right now is essentially all about unlearning. It's all unlearning and coming back to that baseline within us. And because things are physical here and we can create things, we're able to, I don't know, like play with different structures of how that experience and that process can look. We are essentially creating the container for our own unlearning, and then we get to figure out what we want to do from there. It's this like interesting, I don't know, open creative journey, I would say.
Yeah. You get to write your own book.
It's a game, but they put us to work, and we think it's work now, but it's a game. We're supposed to have fun in this whole thing. What's going on?
I'm going to envelop your answer and stick to mine, is that when we get back connected, we are learning it's love. that
Mm-hmm.
the most connected I feel to myself, and then that disillusionment, it's I am in love. I'm in love with this planet. I'm in love with the universe. I'm in love with my partner. I'm in love with me. And so I think when we remember, when we unlearn, when we remember that feeling and that connection, to me is that love piece. It's the absolute, and anything that's in our way. I really need to memorize quotes. There's a beautiful quote that says, anything that is in the way of you loving fully, it is your job and duty to get it out of the way. Anything in the way of love, make sure to remove it.
I feel like what's so beautiful about, I guess, the design of our bodies, even, is we feel so much physically, emotionally. Like there's so much sensation, which opens up the door for so much creativity. How do you want to express love? How do you want to feel love? How do you want to see love? I feel like it's all about building off of, I guess, our essence, and that specific flavor of divine love. We have the capacity here to explore it in so many different ways, whether figuratively or literally. Like there's just so much to play. And I feel like for so long, we've just been building and creating fear,
Yeah.
and we're unlearning that and pivoting to the
Yeah.
love aspect. Yeah.
And we're building what other people are, their designs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
not our designs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go build a beautiful world. Let's go plant some trees and some vegetables and
Let's rewrite it ourselves, take sovereignty and control over it, and like just allow us to just create this as with the human aspect of because even though you mentioned the feelings, and it's most people aren't feeling nowadays, and it's
that's also that disconnect.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Drinking or swallowing pain, swallowing
and one of the things
anger.
we see is when people come through our doorways is being in touch with all the feelings again. It's that reset of being in connection with the feelings that they've been out of touch for quite some time. So that's nice to hear.
Yeah, I had that just growing up. I had to be very hardened, I guess, very early on. My parents are very, very opposite, very unique individuals. My mom is very masculine, like worked with lawyers and in IT and just very like alpha. She's a strong woman. And my dad is very opposite. He's very emotional. He's very gentle and created, doesn't give any fucks about like how he's
Nice.
perceived.
Yeah.
In a very extreme way. So I feel like coming in, it's been an interesting view because they're both, I guess, against the traditional like mom, woman, and dad masculine, which I feel like gave me space to not give a fuck, but also have a structure to like find a way to to make things work in a way that's palatable, I suppose. But I think because of that hardening, but I'm also a Cancer and I'm an empath and I feel all this stuff, I had to find ways to not get overwhelmed by my emotions. And I always felt that creating is what pulled me out of it. If I'm sad and crying, let me paint with my tears. Let me draw on the wall or something. Let me do something with it. And I feel like that's ultimately the purpose of it all, right? We're not supposed to sit and stew or just disconnect. Things want to move. And I feel like leaning into creativity to whatever degree that can be for a person really helps us start to take back control, I suppose, of our systems so that we don't feel at the mercy of everything.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I read this article and it had an optimistic view of what life would be like in probably about now. It was written in like the 1920s. It projected that only 5% of humans would need to work and 95% wouldn't have to work. So of course there would need to be a massive shift in valuing your productivity. People wouldn't value productivity because they wouldn't need to be productive. So it would be hard to conceptualize right now because most of us had that programming. And so it had this beautiful view of, okay, if only 95% of people needed to work, what would they do? And this human thought that they would create. One person would practice a meal all week and then invite people over and cook for them. A group of people would come together and make a play. They didn't have movies at the time. Somebody else would paint things. It would be, how do we bring joy into each other's lives? And then that was written back then. And then somebody wrote why that didn't happen, why it didn't work out. And if we could technologically probably get to where only 5% of people have to work, there would have to be a whole lot of different rewiring. But I'm right in line with you that I think that we are creators, but right now we're in a society in which we are consumers. And I don't even mean just buying material stuff, but also just consuming other people's things. We are just watching and watching instead of creating. And so pause, go make something. Let's go do something, cook something, paint something, doodle anything, create something.
Yeah.
Create a retreat, create a garden.
Beautiful. Well, to close, let's see. What is your favorite method of creating?
I mean, we do create retreats, and so that is my favorite, to like create these spaces and these conversations in which one of the ways, and this comes back to one of your original questions about integrity, is we work with our team not to speak in dogmatic terms. And so just finding creative ways to ask people questions and so that they can come up with answers themselves. And so I do like creating those workshops, those questions, those things like that. On an artistic level, painting is my favorite way to
I love it. Any particular like acrylic or oil or anything, finger paint?
I like acrylic paint. Oil paint is too hard for me, and watercolor seems so easy, but you get 2 tries. If you mess up after twice, it's just too muddy. And so acrylic to me is the easiest way to make something nice because you can just keep going at it until something happens. So it's the easiest, so that's why I like acrylic.
Love it.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's one of the areas that I think it's critically important now is creating community. And I think that's the one part that resonates with me tremendously, because once you come through this process and you achieve a level of awareness that you didn't have before, it can be a lonely road out there. You start to see things differently. You may not relate the same anymore like you were relating in the past. So creating a community of like-minded humans, creating a new way of life, because let's be honest with ourselves, this is a dysfunctional society we live in a world that just, if the world tells me go left, I go right, because I just don't believe anything in what the world has to tell me. So I might as well just create it myself and build the utopia that I think would be best suitable for ourselves and our future generations.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. This has been such a joy. I've
Yeah,
thoroughly
for us
enjoyed my
too.
time.
I'm gonna be
Beautiful.
cheesy. I love your personality.
Oh,
I love
thanks.
you.
Yeah, this hour flew by fast and we loved it, Amber. Thank you so much. You
Of
were
course.
beautiful
Thank
with your
you.
questions.
Thank you. Where can people find you?
You can find us online. If you search for us, Behold Retreats, you will find us. We're on Instagram as well. And then you can come see us in Costa Rica and Mexico and Portugal.
Yes, yeah.
Beautiful.
We're hoping to have new horizons to open up as well, and new modalities as we like to also expand in ways that we can bring new designs into the equations for people that are specifically working on something, whether it's grief, whether it's couples, whether it's family, and so all those things. So
Or working with fairies. We could have
or
a whole group of
fairies, yeah.
people that work with fairies.
Yeah.
I love fairies. They're my favorite. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much again. Feel free to come back anytime.
Thank you
Lovely.
so much.
Thank you for the
You
invite.
us,
I'm
we'll
glad
be
we
there.
got a second invitation. Aren't
We're
we
gonna do
lucky?
questions for you.
Ooh, yeah, we're gonna flip this podcast around.
You know what? I'm open.
Hey now, I love that.
Thank you, Danny and Sarah, so much for your time. As I said at the beginning of this episode, such a joy, had so much fun, one of my favorite conversations. If you would like to learn more about Behold retreats, all of the links will be in the show notes. As always, I am sending my love, my friends, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to Diary of a Psychic Medium with me, Amber Amrine. To learn more about me, book a session, learn about my mentorship program, all that good stuff, you can visit channelwithamber.com. Follow me on Instagram at channelwithamber. Special thank you to Unicorn Heads for my theme song, A Mystical Experience. I'll see you next time.